Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis and we'll be learning today Miras Hashem Daf Chavav Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn the halachos of Kriyas Sefer Torah, the halachos of leining, and we have begun the very complex sugya of what exactly you do when you find a mistake, if you find a mistake in the Sefer Torah. And it's going to be very dependent upon when exactly you discovered the mistake. Where exactly in the Kriyas HaTorah were you holding when you found the mistake? Now, yesterday we went through Chaf Hey Amud Beis and we did Mishnah Berurah's Katan Yud Gimel. Of course, this is in Siman Kuf Mem Gimel Sif Daled, and we went through the Mishnah Berurah's Hakdama here to Sif Daled. So, in the interests of clarity for today's share, I think it's worthwhile to take a couple of minutes and do a brief recap of the Hakdama that we saw yesterday. The Mishnah Berurah opened up by Katan Yud Gimel, telling us that there's a very basic machlokes rishonim when it comes to Kriyas Sefer Torah, and that is it really necessary to lein from a kosher Sefer Torah in order to be mekayim the mitzvah of Kriyas HaTorah? Is it really necessary to lein from a kosher Sefer Torah? There is no mitzvah say daraisa of Kriyas Sefer Torah that requires a kosher Sefer Torah. There is a chiyuv d'Rabbanan, a takanas Moshe Rabbeinu, expanded on by Ezra later on, that we have to have Kriyas HaTorah. We have to have Kriyas HaTorah Monday, Thursday, Shabbos afternoon, Shabbos morning. We have to read the Parsha. Yom Tov, we need Kriyas HaTorah. But was the need for a kosher Sefer Torah an integral part of that takana? There are some rishonim, and the Mishnah Berurah told us this is roiv hapaiskim. So the shitas roiv hapaiskim is that, yes, we have to have a kosher Sefer Torah to be yotza Kriyas HaTorah. If you don't have a kosher Sefer Torah, then you don't have Kriyas HaTorah. Then there's another shita in the paiskim, which the Mishnah Berurah said is the position of miktsas hapaiskim. In the words of the Mishnah Berurah, das miktsas paiskim. There's the opinion of some paiskim, and most notably, this is the Shitas HaRambam, that says that really there's no critical need for a kosher Sefer Torah. Really, the takana of Moshe Rabbeinu, the takana of Ezra, was just that Klal Yisrael needs to hear Kriyas HaTorah. What exactly you hear the Kriyas HaTorah from is not so critical. Kavod HaTzibur, Kavod HaTorah, we use a kosher Sefer Torah. So lechatchila we use a kosher Sefer Torah. But b'di'eved, certainly the Rambam held you don't really need a kosher Sefer Torah. Now, here in Siman Kuf Mem Gimel, in Sif Gimel, we came upon the first nafkamina that we have between these two shitas, and that is the shaila that the Mechaber brought up was, what if you live in a village where you don't have a kosher Sefer Torah, but you have a puzzle of Sefer Torah? Could you take out the puzzle of Sefer Torah and lein from the puzzle of Sefer Torah? If we were to follow the Shitas HaRambam, so according to the Rambam, of course you should. Really, you don't need a kosher Sefer Torah. You have a kosher Sefer Torah, lechatchila you use one. But if you don't have one, take out the puzzle of Sefer Torah and lein from the puzzle of Sefer Torah. But according to the Shitas Roiv HaPaiskim, that you must have a kosher Sefer Torah, then you're not going to take out a puzzle of Sefer Torah, lein from a puzzle of Sefer Torah. You're not accomplishing anything by leining from a puzzle of Sefer Torah. What was the psak of the Mechaber at Sif Gimel? The Mechaber in Sif Gimel went and he said, no, you can't take out a puzzle of Sefer Torah. Afilu b'kfarim shein nimtza lehem Sefer Torah kosher, the Mechaber said, ein mevarchin alav. You can't take out a puzzle of Sefer Torah and lein and make a bracha over a puzzle of Sefer Torah. Why? Because the Mechaber holds that we're not going to go ahead and do something lechatchila keneged roiv hapaiskim. This is not a situation of b'di'eved. B'di'eved really means after the fact. That's what b'di'eved really means. This is not a situation of after the fact. This is a situation maybe of shas adchak. You don't have a kosher Sefer Torah, so it's a shas adchak, but we're not going to let you go lechatchila and take out a puzzle of Sefer Torah and make brachas and lein out of a puzzle of Sefer Torah, because to do so would be to act lechatchila, to do lechatchila keneged dishitas roiv hapoiskim. So that's what the Mechaber paskind in Sif Gimel. Here in Sif Dalid, we're going to contend with a different shaila. In Sif Dalid, we're contending with a shaila of, you already took out a Sefer Torah. You're already holding in the middle of leining. You already did some of the leining. Now you found a mistake in the Sefer Torah. So now we really have a shaila of b'di'evet. You already leined. Maybe you leined one aliyah, only the Kayan's aliyah. Maybe you leined Kayan and Levi and Yisrael. Maybe you already leined 3 aliyahs. But there's a certain amount of leining that's already water under the bridge. That's already b'di'evet. Now what? Do we say that, let's analyze it according to the two shittas. According to the shittas Roiv HaPaiskim, well, the leining that you did is Keman Adamya. It's as if you didn't do anything. You leined from Apostle and Sefer Torah. So if you were to strictly follow the opinion of Roiv HaPaiskim, you would say that whatever you did is Keman Adamya. The leining that you did already was worthless. So what do you have to do? Well, if it's Shabbos morning, you need 7 aliyahs. You got to go back to the beginning of the parsha. It's a do-over. Start over again. Call up a new Kayan, Levi, Yisrael. Just start everything over again. Because nothing that you did had any value. It's Keman Adamya. On the other hand, were you to follow the Shitas HaRambam, according to the Rambam, everything that you did, b'di'eved, is okay. It's not a problem. So now, yesterday we went through the Hakdama, and what we saw from the Hakdama right away, and today we're going to spell it out in detail, is it makes a great difference precisely where are you holding in the leining when you find the mistake. And in today's share, we're going to discuss 2 different scenarios. Scenario number 1 is you discovered the mistake, ben gavra legavra. You discovered the mistake between aliyahs. So you called up the Kayan had his aliyah. You called up the Levi had his aliyah. You called up the Shlishi, the Yisrael, and the Shlishi had his aliyah. Okay? The Shlishi finishes his aliyah. Baruch atah Hashem, noisein HaTorah. Okay? The Gabbai starts to make the Mishnah Berurah. Somebody comes up to the Bima, talks to the Balkara, or whatever it is. That's not really the right thing. The Balkara looks into the Sefer Torah, or the Oila says something, the Oila for Shlishi, points out something to the Balkara. The Balkara turns to the Gabbai and says, there's a psul in the Sefer Torah. So you already laned Kayan, you already laned Levi, you already laned Yisrael, you laned Shlishi. And the Oila for Shlishi already made the second bracha of Shlishi. So Kayan, Levi, and Shlishi are already done. They are water under the bridge. They're already done. And now you discover that the Sefer Torah has a toyus. In this case, the Mechaber is going to say that since we're dealing with a situation of b'di'eved, there's a certain amount of leining that's already done. Now we're going to falozach on the Shitas HaRambam, and we're going to say that according to the Rambam, everything we did is okay, because really you don't need a kosher Sefer Torah. So we're going to say that the aliyahs of Kayan, Levi, and Shlishi all count to the 7 aliyahs that we need to have. The Kriyas HaTorah counts. We don't have to lane over again from the beginning of the parsha, but we're not going to continue laning in this Sefer Torah. We're not going to let the Oila for Revi make a bracha on this Sefer Torah and continue the leining from this Sefer Torah, because we can't do that. That would be doing lichatchila like the Rambam keneged Roiv HaPaiskim. We're not going to go weiter lichatchila in this Sefer Torah. So what are we going to do? We're going to take out a new Sefer Torah now, and we're going to go weiter with that Sefer Torah. That's the first halacha that we're going to see today, and that's going to be the psak of the Mechaber. Let's spell it out. So we're going to read again from the very beginning of Sif Dalet and Chaf Hey Amud Beis. Says the Mechaber, Im nimtza toyos b'Sefer Torah b'shas kriya. If you find a mistake in the Sefer Torah, b'shas kriya, during the time of the leining. That's the literal translation of b'shas kriya, during the time of the leining. Now, the Mechaber does not say be'emtza hakriya. He doesn't say in middle of the leining. He says b'shas kriya, during the time of the leining. The Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us that what this means is you discovered the mistake ben gavra legavra. You discovered the mistake after the end of one aliyah, like the case I keep on giving, after the end of Shlishi. The Shlishi already made the second brach of the aliyah before the beginning of the Revi. You found the mistake ben gavra legavra. In that case, says the Mechaber, Moitzian Sefer Torah acheres, take out another Sefer Torah now, umaschilin mimokim shenimtza hatos, and start leining now. Now, literally, the words here mean start leining now from the place where you found the mistake. Maschilin mimokim shenimtza hatos. The Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us that's not really what it means. What it really means is, and he brings this down from the Magen Avram, what it really means is pick up from where you left off. Because the Mechaber is addressing a case where the mistake was discovered ben gavra legavra. Now, it could be that the mistake wasn't all the way at the end of Shlishi. Maybe the Baal Koreh points out to the Gabbai now that there's a mistake somewhere in the middle of the aliyah of Shlishi. So when the Mechaber says umaschilin mimokim shenimtza hatoyos, he does not mean that you have to go back in the Sefer Torah to the point where the mistake was. No. What he means is to the point at which you discovered the mistake. Now, in our case, the mistake was discovered ben gavra legavra. And in the case I keep using, the mistake was discovered between Shlishi and Revi. So you take out a new Sefer Torah, and where do you begin from? You begin from the point where the mistake was discovered, meaning you pick up from Revi. Everything that you laned until the end of Shlishi is going to count. Even the psukim, let's say there are 20 psukim in the aliyah of Shlishi, and the mistake was found in pasuk number 5. So you laned another 14 psukim from that point on till the end of Shlishi. It all counts. You're going to pick up with the second Sefer Torah from the point at which you discovered the mistake. Which means you're going to pick up with the second Sefer Torah with the beginning of Revi. Umaschilin mimokim shenimtza hatoyos. Umashlimin hakorim. And now complete the number of aliyahs that you need. On a Shabbos, you need 7 aliyahs. Al oisam shekaroi bamuteh. Together with the aliyahs that you were already called up in the puzzle of Sefer Torah. That's what bamuteh means, in the mistaken Sefer Torah. Okay, so this is the first halacha of today's share. And again, just to make sure, I know I'm sounding very repetitive here, but these are very complex halachas. Just to make sure that we got it clear. The first halacha is, you laned Kayin, you laned Levi, you laned Shlishi. Now the Baal Koreh turns to the Gabbai and points into the Sefer Torah and shows him that there's a mistake in the Sefer Torah. Let's say somewhere in the middle of Shlishi. Or maybe even somewhere in the middle of Levi. Or maybe even somewhere in the middle of Kayin. But you're discovering the mistake first now, ben gavra legavra, between Shlishi and Revi. Says the Mechaber, what do? All right, you've got 3 complete aliyahs, water under the bridge. Those count, b'di'evet, like the Shitas Rambam. You can't go weiter in this Sefer Torah because this is now puzzle. Put away this Sefer Torah, take out a new Sefer Torah, call up the Revi, and go weiter. Revi, Chamishi, Shishi, Shvi, Kaddish, Maftir, HaTorah. No problem. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah. So we pick up in the Mishnah Berurah near the bottom of Chafayim and Beis, in the Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Yodalad. So the Mechaber said, in this scenario, you found the mistake b'shas kriya, during the time of the leining. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what does that mean? Pirish, shaloi karu adayin rak miktas ha'olim. You only called up so far a few of the aliyahs. You didn't do the whole parsha yet. De benishlam seder ha-parsha, if you would have already finished the whole parsha, you already called up the Shvi, you finished the whole parsha, and now you first discovered the mistake, you're not going to take out another Sefer Torah. Because b'di'evet, post facto, we falozach on the Rambam, who says that kriya from a Sefer Torah psula is okay. Umayri HaMechaber, and the Mechaber is addressing a case over here, the Nimtza HaTorah ben Gavrei leGavrei, when the mistake was discovered between the aliyos. Ulekach, and therefore, Kol HaNoshim Shekvar Karu, all of the aliyos that already were read, all of the aliyos that were already laned, Oilin Laminyan Shiva, count towards the necessary number of 7 aliyos, Va'afa Achroin, and even the last one, to have a di'evet gomor, because this is mamish a case of b'di'evet. That's what this is. It's post facto. It's water under the bridge, these aliyos. So we falazach on the Rambam, and they count. Now you take out a new Sefer Torah, a Sefer Torah kosher, and where do you pick up the leining from? Ois katan tezvav, mimokai mishenimtza hatos. You pick up the leining from the place where you first discovered the mistake. Not the place where the mistake is. The place where you discovered the mistake. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Myri, the case of the Mechaber is, Shebamokim shepasak ha'oila, at the place where the end of the aliyah is, Shom nimtza hatos. That's where you found the mistake. What the Mishnah Berurah is doing is, the Mishnah Berurah is explaining why the Mechaber wrote it this way. Why did the Mechaber say, Umaschilin mimokim shenimtza hatos? Why did the Mechaber write, Umaschilin, and we begin in the second Sefer with the next aliyah? That's not what he says. He says you pick up from where you found the mistake. Explains the Mishnah Berurah, because in the case of the Mechaber is talking about a case where, you know where the mistake was? The mistake was in the last pasuk of Shlishi. That's where the mistake was. So now you're going to pick up from there. You're going to go to the next pasuk. But, very important, says the Mishnah Berurah, but the same halacha applies, even if they don't discover the mistake, the same thing would be true if the mistake was in middle of the aliyah, and they laned another 3, 4, 5, 6 psukim after the mistake, but they didn't discover the mistake until the end of the aliyah. We're still not going to start leining in the second sefer, only from the new aliyah and on. We don't have to go back to the pasuk where the mistake is. That's not what the Mechaber means. We're going to pick up in the second Sefer Torah from where we left off. Because again, understand the rationale here. Because since we're dealing with a post facto situation, everything that you read in the Pasuk Sefer counts. Because b'di'evet we falazach on the Rambam that you're allowed to lein from a Pasuk Sefer Torah. Ois katan tezayin, the Mechaber said, Umashlimim hakorim al oisam shekar b'muter. Now you call up the rest of the aliyos, the number of aliyos that you need to complete the necessary number of aliyos. So Shabbos you need 7, Yom Tov you need 5, and in the words of the Mechaber, al oisam, on top of the ones that you already laned. Hainu, says the Mishnah Berurah, is cut design, the gam oisam shekaru kvar, because the aliyos that you already called up before you discovered the mistake, mitzdarfin laminyan shiva, they combine to the count of 7. Because again, b'di'evet, water under the bridge, post facto, everything you did already counts. V'hu adin, and the same halach is true, b'sheni v'chamishi, on a Monday or a Thursday, laminyan shloisha. Those aliyos count to the count of 3. So if you called up on Monday a Kayin, and you laned Kayin, and then you called up the Levi, and you laned Levi, and now between Levi and Yisrael, you discover a mistake. So okay, Kayin and Levi count. Put away this Sefer Torah, take out a new Sefer Torah, and lane Yisrael. That's it. You have 3 aliyos, 2 from the Pasuk Sefer Torah, 1 from the Kosher Sefer Torah, and everything counts. Because b'di'evet, we rely on the Shitas Rambam. Now the Mishnah Berurah says, nevertheless, even though this is all true, certainly, if on a Shabbos you could make Hosafos and you could squeeze in 7 aliyahs after the Revi, including Revi, you found the mistake between Shlishi and Revi. So really, you only need Revi, Chamishi, Shishi, Shvi. If you can make 7 aliyahs between Revi and the end of the Parsha, with making Hoysafas, he says that would be good. That way you have them all from a kosher Sefer Torah. Certainly it would be worthy and proper to do so. Okay, so that was halakha number 1 of today's share. Now we're going to go to halakha number 2. Halakha number 2 is going to be a slightly different scenario. In halakha number 2, we're going to discover the mistake in the Sefer Torah in middle of an aliyah. So let's tweak the case a little. You had the Kohen, you had the Levi, you called up the Shlishi. The Shlishi comes up, Baruch Hashem HaMavorach, Asher Baruch Abanu Mikol Amim. The Balkere starts, Amen, he starts leining. He's leining Shlishi. In middle of Shlishi, the Balkere looks at the Sefer Torah, we got a mistake. Now what? Now you're holding in middle of an aliyah. Now, let me take you back to yesterday. For this scenario, the Chavetz Chaim yesterday in the Hakdama brought down 2 opinions. He brought down the Shita of the Maharibe Rav. By the way, the Maharibe Rav, in case you're wondering who the Maharibe Rav was, the Maharibe Rav was the Mechaber's Rebbe. Okay, so that's the kind of person we're talking about here. So he brought down the Shita of the Maharibe Rav. The Maharibe Rav said, and the psak of the Maharibe Rav really extends the same logic that we've been saying until now. What the Maharibe Rav says is, you find a mistake in the middle of Shlishi, so, okay, let's stop for a second. Whatever you laned until now is water under the bridge. Since it's water under the bridge, it's b'diavad, it's post facto, we're going to follow the Rambam, and it all counts. But now what should we do? Are we supposed to go weiter since we're in the middle of an aliyah? Should we go weiter in the puzzle of Sefer Torah? Or maybe even if we can't go weiter in the puzzle of Sefer Torah, maybe we should end the aliyah now. Let's say we're in a place where we can end the aliyah. Let's say we already laned 3 psukim into Shlishi. So we've already got the minimum number of psukim for an aliyah. We already have 3 psukim. So we have a bona fide aliyah. And let's assume that this is a place in the Sefer Torah that we're allowed to stop. We're more than 3 psukim away from the beginning of the next parsha. So we're allowed to stop here. So we already laned 3 psukim, so we have a bona fide aliyah. We're in a place that we're allowed to stop. And we just now realized that we're dealing with a puzzle of Sefer Torah. So on the one hand, you might say, let's stop right here. Let's close out the aliyah. Let the one who has Shlishi make the bracha of Asher Nasa Lanu Torah Semes right now. And then we'll bring out a second Sefer Torah. We'll go weiter with the next aliyah. That would be a thought process. The Maharibe Rav says you can't do that. You know why? Because, again, we're not going to do anything that's kineged roiv hapoiskim lechatchila. Now, in this case, what are you going to do? Let the oiler from Shlishi make the second bracha of his aliyah on a puzzle of Sefer Torah? According to roiv hapoiskim, you're not allowed to make a bracha on a puzzle of Sefer Torah. So to allow the oiler to make a bracha on the puzzle of Sefer Torah, that would be to do kineged roiv hapoiskim lechatchila. It's not post facto. He didn't make the bracha yet. Yes, the psukim that he laned already, we're going to allow that to count because that's post facto. But what are you going to do? You're going to let him make a bracha? You can't let him make a bracha. That's acting lechatchila. You're going to tell him lechatchila, go now and make a bracha on a puzzle of Sefer Torah. But Rav basically say you can't make a bracha on a puzzle of Sefer Torah. So what does the Maharibe Rav say? The Maharibe Rav says what you have to do is you have to stop the leining right now from the puzzle of Sefer Torah. Close the puzzle of Sefer Torah, take out a new kosher Sefer Torah and start leining now. Make sure that you lein a minimum of 3 psukim in the kosher Sefer Torah, because a minimum leining has to be 3 psukim. So make sure that you lein at least 3 psukim in the new Sefer, and then let the Oila of Shlishi make the closing bracha of his Aliyah on the second Sefer Torah. So the Maribei Rav is a rational extension of everything that we've been saying until now. Again, you found a mistake in the middle of Shlishi, says the Maribei Rav. Whatever you lane from Shlishi until now, okay, it's b'di'evid. It all counts. But we can't close out the Aliyah now and let the Oila make a bracha, because he can't make a bracha on a puzzle of Sefer Torah. Because Shitas Roiva Paiskim, you can't make a bracha on a puzzle of Sefer Torah. We're not lechatchila going to go keneged Shitas Roiva Paiskim. So what do? Stop. Close the Sefer Torah, put it away, take out a new Sefer Torah, continue the leining, make sure you lein at least 3 psukim, and then end the Aliyah, and then go weiter. That's the psak of the Maribei Rav. Now, just another detail. According to the Maribei Rav, does it matter how many psukim of the Aliyah you already leined out of the puzzle of Sefer Torah? No. Makes no difference at all. Why should it make a difference? Even if you already leined 5 psukim out of the puzzle of Sefer Torah, we're still not going to say that the Oila can make a bracha on the leining of the puzzle of Sefer Torah, because he can't make a bracha on a puzzle of Sefer Torah. Let's say he only leined 2 psukim. So it's not a bona fide kriya yet. So what? Who cares? He's still going to lein more. He's taking out another Sefer Torah, they're going to lein more. So it's not a problem. So no matter how many psukim were leined into the Aliyah, until the point when you discovered that you're leining from a puzzle of Sefer Torah, the Maribei Rav says, close up the puzzle of Sefer Torah in middle of the Aliyah, take out a new Sefer Torah, and continue the leining from the new Sefer. Just, you have to make sure that you lein at least 3 psukim from the new Sefer Torah. That's the psak of the Maribei Rav. But the Mishnah Berurah brought down yesterday in the Hakdama a dissenting opinion. And that's the opinion of the Mordechai. The Mordechai has what he views to be a critical problem with the psak of the Maribei Rav. The problem that the Mordechai has with the Maribei Rav is that if you follow the psak of the Maribei Rav, what does this Shlishi look like? What's happening with this Aliyah of Shlishi is, you're calling up the Shlishi, he's making the first bracha of his Aliyah on one Sefer Torah, then in middle of his Aliyah, they're closing up the Sefer Torah, putting it away, taking out another Sefer Torah, he's continuing his Aliyah in a second Sefer Torah, and then making the second bracha of his Aliyah on a second Sefer Torah. Says the Mordechai, if you put away the first Sefer Torah before the end of his Aliyah, his first bracha is gone. Remember the halachos that we learned? What happens if they show the Oila the wrong place in the Sefer Torah? We said in some situations, if they showed the Oila the wrong place in the Sefer Torah, and he made his first bracha, and then they realized the mistake, and they have to be goyel the Sefer Torah to someplace else, and it was a real mistake, they really thought that they were supposed to lein here, and then they realized, whoops, that's the wrong parsha, I had in mind the wrong parsha. He has to make a new bracha. And we said, why does he have to make a new bracha? We compared it to the case of the orange. We compared it to the case of somebody who goes to the refrigerator, takes out an orange, closes the refrigerator, goes to the kitchen table, makes a bracha on the orange, and then drops the orange into a bowl of bleach. And now he can't eat the orange. So he made a bari priyates, but he dropped the orange. He can't go to the refrigerator and take out a new orange and eat the new orange on the same bari priyates. He needs a new bari priyates. Says the Mordechai, in this case, the Oila for Shlishi made a bracha on a leining in one Sefer Torah. Now you're putting away the Sefer Torah in the middle of his Aliyah. You're taking out a new Sefer Torah. He needs a new bracha Rishona. The opening bracha of his Aliyah is gone. He needs a new bracha Rishona of his Aliyah. And the Mordechai says, it's not poshut to put away the Sefer Torah and then to go tell him, make a new bracha Rishayna on the new Sefer. Why? Because we have this major machlekes Rishonim over here. According to the Rambam, he doesn't need to make a bracha. But because according to the Rambam, the leining for the Apostle of Sefer Torah was fine. So why are you putting away the first Sefer Torah? According to the Rambam would say, keep leining in the Apostle of Sefer Torah. So the Mordechai says, what are you going to do? You're going to put away the Sefer Torah in the middle of the Aliyah, and maybe you're going to be matzrich a bracha she'eina tzricha? You're going to make the Oila make a new bracha Rishayna on a second Sefer Torah? It might be a bracha she'eina tzricha. So the Mordechai doesn't like the psak of the Maribe Rav. The Mordechai says, instead, what do you have to do? Instead, what you have to do is, you have to end the Aliyah in the Pasal of Sefer Torah. The Maharibe Rav's problem. The Maharibe Rav's problem was, how do you make the bracha, the second bracha of the Aliyah, on the Pasal of Sefer Torah? The Mordechai says that's all part of the B'diavad. It's all part of the B'diavad. Since B'diavad we falazach on the Rambam, and we say that everything that was leined in the Pasal of Sefer Torah counts, in that case it also gets a bracha. The bracha is dragged along with the fact that you're falazach on the Rambam. If you're following the Rambam, you're following the Rambam. So make a bracha. Now, what does the Maribe Rav do with the Mordechai's problem? Why does the Maribe Rav say you can take out a second Sefer Torah and you don't need a new bracha Rishayna? The Maribe Rav says you don't need a new bracha Rishayna. When the bracha was made, when the Shlishi made the bracha, did he make the bracha on the Sefer Torah? Is the Sefer Torah the orange that got dropped and now you want to go to the refrigerator and take out a new orange? No. The bracha was on the Parsha. The bracha was on the Kriya. The bracha was on the Parsha that you're going to lein. It wasn't on the Sefer Torah. So even if you're taking out a new Sefer Torah, the bracha Rishona goes on to the leining in the new Sefer Torah. So again, because we have to get this very clear for the rest of the Mishnah Berurah today. The second halacha that we're going to learn today, you discovered the mistake in the Sefer Torah in middle of the Aliyah. That's where you discovered it. Not between Aliyahs. In middle of the Aliyah, in middle of leining Shlishi, you discovered the mistake. In that case, we have a machlekes, the Maribe Rav and the Mordechai. The Maribe Rav says, you found a mistake. You got to put away the Sefer and take out a new Sefer, because you can't have the Oile make the second bracha of his Aliyah on a Apostle of Sefer Torah. So it doesn't matter how much you leined. It doesn't matter how little you leined. It doesn't matter anything. You got to put away the Sefer Torah in the middle of the Aliyah, take out a new Sefer Torah, continue the Aliyah, and the Oila will make the second bracha of his Aliyah on the new Sefer Torah. Only caveat is, you have to make sure that in the new Sefer you lay in a minimum of 3 psukim, so that there should be a bona fide Aliyah in the new Sefer Torah. The psukim of the Aliyah that you leined in the Pasal of Sefer Torah, those count. It's B'diavad. We follow the Rambam. It counts. That's the Maribe Rav. The Mordechai says, no, can't do that. Can't do that. You can't go to a new Sefer Torah in the middle of an Aliyah. If you go to a new Sefer Torah in the middle of an Aliyah, you lose the bracha Rishona of the Aliyah. So you can't do that. So what do you have to do? You have to close out the Aliyah in the Pasal of Sefer Torah. You're making a bracha on a Pasal of Sefer Torah. That's okay. Because since we're following the Rambam, and we say that the leining that we did until now counts, we can make a bracha on it. No problem. The only thing in the Mordechai is, now, according to the Mordechai, it gets a little tricky. Because according to the Mordechai, that you're going to close out the Aliyah in the Pasal of Sefer Torah, what do you do if they only leined 2 psukim into the Aliyah? They leined 2 psukim into the Shlishi, and after leining 2 psukim into the Shlishi, they discovered a mistake. Now, how do you make a bracha? You don't have the minimum number of psukim. So the Mordechai says, you know what? You got to do what you got to do. You leined 2 psukim in the Pasal of Sefer Torah, and now you discovered a mistake. You got to lein another pasuk. There's nothing you can do. What if you lein another pasuk, and now you're within 2 psukim of the next parsha, and you're not allowed to stop within 2 psukim of the next parsha? You got to finish the parsha in the Pasal of Sefer Torah. whatever you have to do in order to allow the oile to make the closing bracha of his aliyah in the Pasuk of Sefer Torah, that's what you got to do. And it's all going to count, b'di'evid, like the Rambam. Okay, so that's the two shittas, the Maribe Rav and the Mordechai. What we're going to see now is that the Mechaber is going to follow lockstep in the sheet of his Rebbe. The Mechaber is going to go like the Maribe Rav. The Ramah, we're going to start the Ramah today. The Ramah is going to parse, and he's going to cut a line between the Maribe Rav and the Mordechai. Okay, against that very complex backdrop, I hope it was clear, let's go weiter. We're at the end of the line, top line in the Mechaber, Chavav Amud Aleph. V'im nimtza tois be'emtza kriyas haKoreh. Let's say the mistake was discovered be'emtza kriyas haKoreh, in the middle of the leining. That means in the middle of an aliyah. Says the Mechaber, what do? Goimer kriyasai ba'sefer hakosher. You're going to put away this sefer. Put away the Pasuk sefer. Right away. And goimer kriyasai, complete the leining of this aliyah b'sefer hakosher. In a kosher sefer that you'll take out now. Umevarech lachareh. And make the second bracha of the aliyah in the kosher sefer. Ve'enoi chayzer levarech lefaneha. And you don't have to make a new bracha rishona. Even though you're switching from the Pasuk Sefer, you made the bracha rishona of the aliyah on the Pasuk Sefer, and now you're putting it away and you're taking out a new Sefer, a kosher Sefer, you don't lose the bracha rishona. Because like the Mordechai says, like the Maribe Rav says, the bracha goes on the parsha, not on the Sefer. So the bracha rolls over from the old Pasuk Sefer to the new kosher Sefer. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Yod Zayin, Be'emtza kriyas. In this case that we're discussing now, you found the mistake in the middle of the leining of an aliyah. Hainu afilu kvar karu kama psukim. This is true even if you already laned a lot of psukim into the aliyah. You laned already 10 psukim of the aliyah in the Pasuk of Sefer Torah. So you have a bona fide aliyah even if you would stop right now. Kol shaloi berech adayin bracha achrona. If you did not yet make the closing bracha of the aliyah, eina yakal lifter atzmai b'mashe kvar kara b'sefer Torah psula. You can't stop now and make the closing bracha now based on what you laned in the Pasuk of Sefer Torah. Because then you're making a bracha lichatchila on the Pasuk of Sefer Torah shaloi kedas roi v'apaiskim. Can't do that. Shaharei yakal likroi shloisha psukim b'sefer kasher. Because you have another option. Take out a kosher Sefer Torah, lane the minimum, at least the minimum number of psukim, lane 3 psukim in the kosher Sefer, and make a bracha on the kosher Sefer. Valkain, and therefore, paskins the Mechaber, what you got to do is, goimer kriyasa, yudches, you're going to finish the aliyah in a new Sefer. Hainu sheyikra sham shloisha psukim. Again, the Mishnah Berurah wants to be very careful. Understand that you must lane at least 3 psukim in the kosher Sefer Torah. Don't think that if there are only 2 psukim left to the aliyah, you're going to take out the new Sefer and only lane 2 psukim. No. We want to make sure that you have at least 3 psukim in the kosher Sefer, so you have a bona fide aliyah in the kosher Sefer to make a bracha on, like the Shitas Roi V'Apaiskim. Ois Katan Yutes, ve'enoi chayzer levarech. And you don't have to repeat the bracha rishona. Why not? Why not? You changed Sfarim. Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Disvirale, because the Mechaber is following the Maharibe Rav, who holds the bracha rishayna shebirach ha'oila b'tchilas kriyasai, that the first bracha of the aliyah that the oila made when they first started laning his aliyah, b'sefer arishin in the first pasuk of sefer, oila gam lazai. It rolls over onto the second Sefer Torah. The hadaita hayom b'tchila al parshazu, because his das, when he went ahead and he made the bracha, it was on the parsha. It's not on the Sefer Torah. Mali Sefer Torah zuay acheres. What's the difference if it's in this Sefer Torah or in that Sefer Torah? It makes no difference. Ois Katan Chaf lifaneha. You don't have to make a new bracha rishayna. V'hu adin kishenimtza atos ben bracha likriya. The same halacha would be true. Let's say the Oila Shlishi came up. Baruch Hu Hashem HaMavarach, Asher Baruch Rabbanim Mikol Amim, Baruch Atah Hashem Noisein HaTorah. The Balkari says Amen. He looks in the Sefer Torah, he sees a mistake. So he didn't lane even one word of the Aliyah yet. Okay. Goylin Sefer Torah Zu, roll closed this puzzle of Sefer Torah, Umoitzian Sefer Torah Acheres Likreispa, and take out a new kosher Sefer to lane from. V'ha Oila Shekvar Beirach, and the Oila Shlishi who already made the bracha, ain't Tzarech Lavar Shenis. He doesn't have to make a second bracha, Im Lo Hifsik B'sicha Meintayim, as long as he wasn't mafsik. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, U'b'makam shenogu bazeh, in a place where they're noyeg, that in this case, where the mistake was found between the bracha and the beginning of the aliyah, where then noyeg sheha oila chayzer u'mavarech, that the oila should make a new bracha, gam kenein l'nchizpa. You shouldn't be moicha. Sheyesh lem ha'masha yismoichu. Because they have who to rely on. Who? The Mordechai. They're relying on the Shitas of Mordechai that you need a new bracha rishona for a new Sefer Torah. Okay, so that was the psak of the Mechaber. The Mechaber is the Mari Beirav. You find a mistake in the middle of an aliyah. That's it. Close the Sefer Torah, put it away, take out a new Sefer Torah, finish the aliyah, make sure you laid at least 3 psukim in the new Sefer Torah, and make the second bracha on the new Sefer Torah, because you can't make the bracha on the old Sefer Torah. Now, says the Ramah, bottom line here in the Shulchan Aruch Chavav Amud Aleph, says the Ramah, Hagah. The Ramah tweaks it a little bit, and he says, not so fast. It depends. Hagah. Ve'im kvar karu imoy shloisha psukim. If you discovered the mistake, let's say in the middle of Shlishi, but you already laned the minimum of 3 psukim into the aliyah, em kvar karu imoy shloisha psukim. If you already laned 3 psukim, so you have a bona fide aliyah, ve'efshar lahafsik, and you're in a place in the Sefer Torah where you're allowed to stop the aliyah, you're more than 2 psukim away from the next parsha, then, says the Ramah, poiskim sham, stop the aliyah there, umevarech achareha, and make the second bracha of the aliyah over there. So the Ramah is parsing. According to the Mari Beirav, you always stop the aliyah right where you find the mistake in the middle of the aliyah. You put away the puzzle of Sefer Torah, you take out a new Sefer Torah, and you go weiter, you finish the aliyah, and you make the bracha. Says the Ramah, it depends. If you already laned enough psukim, you already laned 3 psukim, so you have a bona fide aliyah that you're able to make a bracha on, and you're in a place in the Sefer Torah where you're allowed to stop, then, says the Ramah, do like the Mordechai. Stop over here, end the aliyah, make the bracha, take out a new Sefer Torah, and start the next aliyah, go weiter in the new Sefer Torah. But if you only laned 2 psukim, or if you're holding in a place in the Sefer Torah where you're not allowed to stop, then he doesn't say like the Mordechai. He doesn't say, do whatever you can to end the aliyah. Let's take a look in the Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah says, it's cut in Chaf Aleph. V'im kvar, de'ezu chelekes al mechaber. Now the Ramah is disagreeing with the mechaber. K'moishe kesavnu le'el b'hakdama, like I told you yesterday, in Ois Katan Yud Gimel in the Hakdama. Now we're going not like the Mari Beirav, now we're going like the Mordechai. And truth is, the Mishnah Berurah says, really the Ramah should have said Hagah v'yesh omrim, because he's differing with the Mechaber. Ela shekain darka b'kama mekaymes, but this is the derech of the Ramah in many places. Ois Katan Chav Beis, if you already laned 3 psukim, ve'efshar lahafsik, and you're in a place where you're allowed to stop, Pirish shehu shloisha psukim samach laparsha, you have at least 3 more psukim to the beginning of the next parsha, so you laned 3 psukim already, so you have a bona fide aliyah, and you're at least 3 psukim away from the next parsha, so you're allowed to stop. But if you're in a place where you're not allowed to stop, let's say there's only 2 psukim left to the next parsha, im kain ef shaloi lifsek sham, then you can't stop. Then Yigmar Kriyasai b'Sefer HaKosher, then the Ramah would agree to the Mechaber. Put away the Pasul of Sefer Torah, take out the Kosher of Sefer Torah, and continue the Aliyah in the Kosher of Sefer Torah, ad ha-parsha v'chanal. Ois kan chav gimel, u'mevarech achareha. If you already laned 3 psukim, and you're in a place that you're allowed to stop, then the Mordechai says, do like the Mordechai. Stop right over here and make the second bracha. Because the Ramah is saying like the Mordechai, that since you laned 3 psukim before you discovered the mistake, so you have a bona fide aliyah, yatsa b'zeh kriya, you were yotza the kriya for this aliyah, you have a bona fide aliyah, umemela tzarich levarach achareh. So now make a bracha now. Vein tzarich shuv ligmar kriyasa b'sefer hakosher. And you don't have to finish the aliyah in the kosher sefer. Avo b'shenimtza atoy sacha shekar rak shnei psukim. But let's say you find the mistake, you discover the mistake, and you're only 2 psukim into the shlishi, right? The ef shaloi lifsek sham, so you can't stop there. Then moida ala mechaber. Then the Ramah agrees with the Mechaber that you should follow the Maharibe Rav. The Goyme Kriyasai b'Sefer HaKosher u'mavarach achareh. In that case, he agrees with the Maharibe Rav that you should take out the new Sefer, put away the Apostle of Sefer, take out the new Sefer, and continue the Kriya in the new Sefer. V'ayin b'bir halacha shebirarnu b'shem kama achroinim techein yesh linoig l'maisa kepsaka shulchan aruch. He says that we should follow the psak of the Shulchan Aruch, who follows the Maharibe Rav, u'kefi ma she'ekriya Ramah, but with the Ramah's tweak. In loy b'makom sheish minik kavua be'er kedas magen Avram shetafas b'shivas hamardechai shevesi ba'akdama ein lehem l'shanis minhagam. So, what's the Ramah doing, and what's the Mishnah Berurah saying? So the difference between the Ramah and the Mechaber is that the Mechaber strictly follows the Maharibe Rav. The Mechaber says, if you find a mistake in middle of the Aliyah, we follow the sheet of the Maharibe Rav, which is a rational, logical extension of everything we learned until now, which is whatever's water under the bridge, whatever we laned already, that's b'diavad, we follow like the Rambam. But you cannot go ahead and allow the Oila to make the second bracha of his Aliyah on a puzzle of Sefer Torah. Because that would be to act l'chatchila keneged shitas Rav HaPoskim. So according to the Maharibe Rav, you discover a mistake in the middle of an Aliyah. I don't care where, I don't care how many psukim you laned, I don't care how many psukim are left. You close the puzzle of Sefer Torah, put it away, take out a new Sefer Torah, finish the Aliyah in the new Sefer Torah, and the Oila will make the second bracha in the new Sefer Torah. That's the psak of the Maharibe Rav, and that's the psak of the Mechaber. The Ramah tweaks it a little bit. In one case, the Ramah goes like the Mordechai. And that is, the Ramah says, if you can end the Aliyah in the puzzle of Sefer Torah, what does it mean that you can? Well, you already laned at least 3 psukim, so you have a bona fide aliyah, and you're in a place in the Sefer Torah where you're allowed to stop. If you can stop the aliyah in the puzzle of Sefer Torah, stop the aliyah in the puzzle of Sefer Torah, make the closing bracha of the aliyah in the puzzle of Sefer Torah, and pick up with a new aliyah in the kosher of Sefer Torah next. But if you can't, if you didn't lane 2 psukim yet, or if you're in a place in the Sefer Torah where you're not allowed to stop, in that case, the Mordechai holds that you still have to end the aliyah over there. How are you going to end the aliyah over there? Lane weiter. Lane weiter, the Mordechai says, even though you're laning l'chatchila weiter in a puzzle of Sefer Torah. Lane weiter. Because the Mordechai says, you must end the aliyah in the puzzle of Sefer Torah. Because if you shift over to the next Sefer Torah, the oil is going to have to make a new bracha rishayna, and we can't have that. The Ramah doesn't go that far. The Ramah only paskins like the Mordechai in a case where you painlessly could end the aliyah right here in the puzzle of Sefer Torah. You already laned 3 psukim, and you're in a spot where you're allowed to stop. In that case, the Ramah paskins like the Mordechai and the Aliyah here. But if you only laned 2 psukim, so you can't end the Aliyah here in the Pasal of Sefer Torah, or you laned 3, 4, 5, 6 psukim, but you can't stop because there's only 2 psukim left to the next parsha, so you're not allowed to stop here. Then the Ramah says, now you have to do like the Mechaber. I'm not going to tell you lane weiter lechatchila like the Mordechai. Nope. Now you got to do like the Mechaber. Stop, take out the new Sefer Torah, continue the Aliyah in the new Sefer Torah. Okay, we're going to stop over here because at this point the Mishnah Berurah really goes on to a separate topic. So we're going to stop here by the word noihagen. I hope that this is clear. Very complex. I hope it's clear. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be begging against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shem should send Yeshua's refuahs parnasit should took them to all those in need. We should be zeicher to see the B'yas Gal Tzedek b'mehera v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.